There we are. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jennifer Robson. And thank you, everybody, for joining Jennifer and I. And if you're not already a fan of Jennifer, she is an international best-selling author of 6 books, and she's working on a 7th, and she's on deadline. So I'm just so grateful that she's taking the time to do this. And because this will be a much more interesting video than it is just me as a single talking head. We have 2 talking heads now. But we're going to try and keep this short and to the point so that Jen can get back to her busy life. Jen, over to you.
Thank you, and congratulations, Janie. I know it's a little early in the day, but I do have a little tiny celebratory drink that I'm toasting you with. You've written another beautiful, beautiful book, and I just can't wait for people to read it and embrace it and start sending you lovely emails about how much they love the book. And I thought maybe a good place to start is with a brief and 100% spoiler-free summary of the Library of Legends. I'm not good at doing brief, but I'll try here. So the Library of Legends, it's set in 1937. War has broken out between China and Japan, and our main character is Lian, and her university where she's attending, obviously, you know, as a minority among students, there are only, I think you were saying 15% of students by and large were women in China at that time. The university was forced to evacuate inland to the west, away from the invading Japanese army. And so the students and professors and the university staff began this journey of 1,000 miles, which I did a little research. From where I live in Toronto, 1,000 miles takes you down to the bottom of Florida. So that made it clear to me how very far they were going. And with them, they carried all their belongings, their school supplies, the kitchenware, the stoves that they had to cook on, but the most important thing they had with them was the Library of Legends, which was a priceless collection of ancient Chinese myths. So along the journey, we learn that the mythical creatures described in the Library of Legends are also on the move with the students, and that a celestial being is traveling with them. And then for Lian, she finds new friendships. There's a smidge of romance as well. And but there are family secrets, and these make her a victim of political manipulation. And so she's forced to turn away from her friends. And things become even more dire after a classmate is murdered. So this book just has everything. And I just have to ask, though, if I'm going to put on my history nerd hat now, this story about an entire campus of students who've become refugees, is this a true story? Is it drawn from history?
And the answer from one history nerd to another, Jen, is absolutely, it is. And this is an episode of history that not a lot of people outside of China seem to know about. In those days, there were maybe like 43,000 university students in this country of 500 million. So the government considered these young adults the brain trust of the future. This was a generation that they had to preserve and protect so that, you know, there would be educated young people around to help build China once the war was over. And so there was an evacuation of universities. About 77 universities moved from coastal China inland to get to safety, where the government had set up wartime campuses for them. And it's not only history, but it's family history. Because my father was one of those students who traveled with his campus and They walked during the day. They walked at night when there was fear of aerial attacks. They slept on hard floors of temples and ancestral halls. And, you know, they really endured a lot. So, yep, it's real. And there are so many anecdotes in there which are actually pulled from my family's history and also from stories that friends of the family told me about their experiences during this time.
I have to say, it just gives me the chills to think that your dad was there. You know, that this is drawn from lived, real, familiar history. It really does give me the chills. While we're talking about, you know, history and you know, what's real, what's imagined, the Library of Legends itself. I mean, is that and I'm speaking out of ignorance here, but is that a real thing?
I made that up, the Library of Legends. However, it is based on a real incident in history. I came across this little nugget of information about a university who evacuated their campus. But not only were they trying to protect the students, they also carried with them the entire contents of a former imperial library, which included like one of the oldest encyclopedias in China. And it was, you know, rare, absolutely unique, a national treasure. So not only did these students, you know, walk all that way, they walked all that way protecting this library. And the library made it to the other side of the war safe and sound. And I can just tell you, it was one of these history geek things where you think, I can do something with it. And it became the Library of Legends.
That moment where the ultimate aha moment, you think you can see the whole book there, and you found that magic piece that makes everything, all the puzzle pieces fit. Yeah, and I mean and again, you know, you've drawn this beautiful story, populated by people who are based in reality, people who are, you know, your characters who have their basis in real figures, people who did struggle and suffer within living memory. But at the same time, you also have characters who, you know, they flit around the edges of what some people might term fantasy. We have the celestial being, the star. We have the centuries-old romance that intersects with the human world. How would you describe these elements of fantasy that appear in the book? You know, some people might decide to term that magical realism. Is that a term that you would feel comfortable using here?
I would not refer to it exactly as magical realism. When I think about some of the South American wonderful, wonderful authors who write in magical realism, they seem to have very strange things happen and the characters just sort of accept it. In my novels, I'm always very careful to draw the magical elements from Chinese folklore, mythology, and legend, because I want these supernatural creatures to be familiar to the characters in the book, so that when they make an appearance, the characters understand what it is that they're looking at, and I need to find a way to convey to readers what they're looking at, you know, because readers are not so familiar with the Chinese mythology. So when you refer to that celestial creature and an eternal love story, it's actually drawn from a very popular Chinese legend called the Ox Herd and the Weaver Girl. You know, the Weaver Girl is a star. she comes down from the heavens just to have a look around, meets this handsome mortal. I think you can see where this is going. And they fall in love, but eventually she has to return to the heavens, and she cries so much that the stardust of her tears just obscures the skies and makes celestial navigation impossible for the mortals, and the Queen of Heaven says, well, this is no good at all. So she makes a deal with the Weaver Girl, the heavenly Weaver Girl, that once a year she can, she and her lover can meet across the Bridge of Birds. And this has actually become marketed as Chinese Valentine's Day now. But I sort of like repackaged the story to turn it into the story of the Willow Star and the Prince. So it comes by as provenance, honestly.
Yes, absolutely. Now, with this book, you have turned to, it's a story that's set in wartime, and, doing the research and certainly the writing for a book like that is something I feel a familiarity with, because most of my books are set during or after the two world wars of the past century. And the thing is, I know this happens to me and other people who write about the wars, that it can feel very, I wouldn't say burdensome, but you feel weighed down at times by the horrors that you're reading about, and the struggles and the heartbreak that real people have suffered above and beyond the great battles and treaties and the names that make it into the official histories and biographies. There are millions of ordinary people who lived through this time and struggled and died. And when we then come to turn these stories into a book, there's that balance that we have to hit between doing justice to the people who lived through that time, and being respectful of what they went through, but also providing a story that people will be able to read without themselves feeling completely depressed and miserable at the end of it. And and it's a balance that I sometimes, as I'm writing, I feel very anxious about hitting. But I would say in the Library of Legends, it's a balance that you've managed to find very, very beautifully. But how did you do that? How did you manage to do justice both to the real story of the suffering of the people of China in this period, and at the same time produce a book that is ultimately uplifting and hopeful and comforting, which frankly is what I think we're all looking for right now in terms of the novels we're reading.
Jen, I think I never realized until I did so much research into a time of war how much we could be affected emotionally by reading about the brutalities, the suffering, because we're not writing history books with dates and the names of generals and dates of battles. What we're trying to get to are human beings, the stories of characters, how they must have felt, how they would have responded to very difficult challenges, and because what we want to do is put our readers into that environment, is to put our readers into those well-worn and sometimes blisteringly painful shoes, right? And yes, we don't want them to fall into despair either. So when I was thinking about how to lighten up the story without taking away from how difficult it was for the people who lived through that era, there were a number of things that came to me. I think one was just the youthful optimism of the students at the university. Because I remember my father saying to me, oh, well, I guess we should have been afraid of, being bombed, but, everybody was sort of walking on the road, and we just thought that if we listened to our professors, we would be safe. They were just filled with youthful optimism. and they were young. I mean, um, they still had romances and crushes on their classmates. There were, the schools was like 15% female population. Every single one of those girls had an admirer, if not five. And, I'm reading things in memoirs about, girls who were in absolute despair because the boys who liked them would write terrible, terrible poetry and tuck it into their backpacks. So that, the war did not stop human nature and youthful optimism from expressing itself. Okay. And
Yeah.
then the other thing I was also being able to inject the magic in there, because when I wrote about these beautiful and terrible creatures, the spirit guardians and protectors of China, it allowed me to write prose that was more, I don't know, just a bit more sparkling than descriptions of refugees trudging along the road. It helped me sort of lift the tone and the prose and inject that bit of magic in there. And my one of my editors said that it was a good thing to write those moments of beauty and give the readers a rest
Yeah.
from all the horrors of war.
In a way, I think we've taken the same approach in you in the Library of Legends and me with the gown, where I wanted to write about this very difficult time in post-war history in Britain, this time of shortages and rationing and really a depressing time. And what I needed was something that I needed the sparkle, I needed the stardust, and I found it in my case in the royal wedding. But you've done something very similar, when I think of it, with the Library of Legends, because you do have the very difficult reality, but at the same time it's leavened and lightened and illuminated beautifully by these elements of magic, which are really delicious. I don't know if maybe I'm just so obsessed with food now that we've been home for weeks and weeks. That's everything is through a lens of food, to be honest. I want to say, to everyone who's watching, if it's not already clear, I am a huge fan of Janie's work. And we are friends. We've toured together before. Unfortunately, we're not doing events side by side because of all of the changes that we're all living through right now. But I feel I feel really strongly that this is a book I want you to read. I know it's hard to get out and buy books right now, but if you can, in the past, if you've been a customer of your local independent bookstore, a lot of them are offering, you can call them up, you can email, you can order books. They will do contact-free delivery. They will do curbside pickup for you. There's all sorts of ways they can get the books to you. If you feel you really can't wait, there is an ebook edition of the Library of Legends available. And very soon there will be an audiobook, which I know will be wonderful because our publisher, we share the same publisher, and they invariably produce beautiful, beautiful audiobooks. And I just want to hear from you, Janie, what you have planned for the American launch of the Library of Legends, which is a little bit later. So if you're watching now from the United States, the book is coming soon. It's coming on May 12th. And I know Janie has some fun things set up for then.
So I have rounded up the third member of our historical fiction tour, author Kate Quinn, who will be chatting with me also in a video on May the 12th. So that'll be lots of fun. And both for the US and for Canada, there's going to be a fabulous puzzle giveaway. So I don't know if people have noticed, but this is rather a beautiful cover, and
it is a stunning cover. Stunning.
Yeah, And one of my bookseller friends told me that while books are doing okay, puzzles are just flying out the door. So I've had a 1,000 piece puzzle on order now as a very special giveaway. So I know this is what everyone has hung on for. How do I win this puzzle? So here it is. There are two ways to be winning this puzzle. The first is really simple. You just make some comments or ask some questions under this post, and Jen and I will answer them if we can, and when we can. And I'll give you guys, like an hour and a half. So let's see, say about 11:30 Pacific time. I'll cut things off for the contest, and I will pick a winner. And someone will win in Canada, will win this gorgeous puzzle. But there's another way to win, and it helps independent bookstores, okay? So if you buy a copy of the Library of Legends on or before May the 5th, from one of 4 participating bookstores in Canada, they will each do a draw on May 6th, and they will get in touch with the winner. So there are 4 more opportunities to be winning this giveaway. And I will post their information when I'm done with this. But very quickly, the participating bookstores are in Quebec, Brome Lake Books in Knowlton, in Ontario, Blue Heron Books in Uxbridge, in BC, Main Street Book Warehouse in Vancouver, and Munro's Books in Victoria. And just so you know, the 2 BC bookstores are also giving out $5 gift coupons for each copy of the Library of Legends, and your purchases will also generate donations in aid of homelessness. So
wonderful. And you know what? I almost forgot. I am going to be giving away 5 copies of the Library of Legends over the next little while. I just have to check the dates, but check my social media feeds, and there will be details there, and we'll be sending them out to the winners. And we'll do a random selection of people who leave comments. So check back with me, but really the exciting prize here, above and beyond Janie's wonderful book, is a 1,000-piece puzzle. This is not one of these little teeny ones with 12, 24 pieces. This is a big tabletop puzzle that will keep you busy for a good long time.
And thanks so much for reminding me, Jennifer. So throughout the week, I will be picking random names from the people who've posted under this, and I'll also be doing some book giveaways. So that's how I'm going to celebrate this coming week. And thank you so much, Jen, for taking time out of your very, very busy day and making dinner and everything.
Well, you're very welcome. This is Janie's big birthday, big book birthday. We call them book birthdays when we're authors. And, it's hard to celebrate a birthday under quarantine. And when it's your own book and you're used to going out and having a launch party and visiting bookstores and seeing readers in person, to be doing it at home is tough. So I'm raising a glass to you and wishing every success for the Library of Legends, which is just a wonderful, wonderful book.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to cut off the recording now.